Ever get that nagging feeling?
Yeah.
Like there have to be a way to build real wealth without, waiting until your knees give out,
Mm-hmm.
beyond just the usual advice like pinch pennies and hope your 401k kind of pulls through
Yeah.
sometime way off in the future.
Yeah, that feeling that the stand-in path might not be the only path.
Exactly. It feels like we're all just on this slow-moving conveyor belt, right?
And you can't help but wonder, is there an off-ramp, something faster?
Well, that sense of a potentially faster track, it's definitely out there. That questioning of whether conventional wisdom is the whole story. I hear that quite a bit. It often comes from seeing others, hit big financial goals
Mm.
much earlier in life.
Yeah. Makes you wonder how they did it.
Exactly. What are those other routes?
Absolutely. And that brings us perfectly to today's book talk, finance. We're going to unpack a guide that really pushes back against that traditional slow and steady idea.
Okay.
The book is The Millionaire Fastlane. And look, this isn't your typical dry finance textbook, not at
Yeah.
all.
This one actually comes from like real-world experience and ongoing chats within a community. It's over at thefastlaneforum.com, a place where people are actively, debating and exploring these exact ideas about building wealth differently.
Oh, interesting. So the ideas are kind of rooted in a community discussion.
Yeah,
That's quite telling, actually. It suggests these aren't just abstract theories locked away somewhere. Sounds like they're being actively tested, maybe refined by people really striving for those kinds of goals.
totally. And the author, M.J. DeMarco, he's not just, theorizing from some ivory tower. The story goes, he hit his first million by, age 31?
Wow. Okay.
And apparently stepped away from the 9-to-5 grind by 37.
37. Yeah, that definitely gets your attention when we're talking about escaping the usual career path.
Right, so it's kicked it all off for him. Well, apparently when he was just a teenager, he had this encounter with a Lamborghini.
Ah, the classic symbol.
The ultimate symbol, yeah. Speed, wealth, all of it. He actually calls it the Lamborghini prophecy. Seeing that car just lit a fire under him, apparently, made him want that kind of financial freedom way, way earlier than standard retirement age.
That kind of initial powerful desire often sparked by seeing something compelling like that. It can be a huge motivator, especially for looking beyond the usual ways of doing things. That Lamborghini, it represents a lifestyle that feels, well, worlds away from the slow accumulation model most of us know.
Totally. So the core idea of the book, the fundamental premise here, it's really a direct challenge to that whole get-rich-slow mentality we hear so much about.
Okay.
DeMarco basically argues that this traditional roadmap, it might have some, let's say, serious flaws, and that there could actually be a more direct, maybe an accelerated way to achieve significant wealth and, real financial freedom.
Challenging the status quo, then.
Big time.
Mm-hmm.
He even dedicates the book to his mother, thanks her for her, get this,
That's
haunting motherly taunts of, get a job, baby, which he says, ironically, just fueled his desire to, rebel against financial mediocrity.
That's quite an acknowledgement. It gives you a little glimpse into the personal side, doesn't it? That
Yeah.
sort of contradictory thanks for being told to get a job. It hints at a really central theme, I bet, questioning whether traditional employment is the only way or even the best way to serious wealth.
Exactly. He also gives a shout out to Michelle Hirsch for believing in the project early on, and the Fastlane Forum community, too, for helping bring it all together.
Right, the community aspect again.
Okay, so clearly DeMarco isn't a fan of get rich slow. But what exactly are his issues with it? Why does he think this path, the one most people are kind of pointed towards, might not be the best way? Or at least not the fastest?
Well, one of his main criticisms really revolves around time, just the sheer amount of time that get rich slow demands. It's a strategy built on decades, right? Decades of working, saving diligently, patiently investing.
Yeah, the long haul.
And the big rewards, if they come, often don't show up until you're much older, late in life. He raises a pretty critical point there. What if life, throws a wrench in the works?
Like what?
Well, health issues, for example. Or what about a major economic downturn just when you were planning to retire?
Yeah, timing is everything there.
These are real risks. They're kind of baked into such a long-term strategy.
Right. He even mentions recessions, doesn't he? As things that can really, expose how fragile that whole hope and pray approach can be.
Exactly.
The idea that you just work for 40 years, hope the market doesn't tank too badly right before you need the money, and, hope you're still around and healthy enough to actually enjoy it. When you put it like that, it does sound like leaving an awful lot to chance.
It does. And secondly, he argues that the get-rich-slow approach often means you're putting a lot of control into someone else's hands. Think about relying heavily on Wall Street, the stock market.
You mean you don't have much say over what happens?
Precisely. As an individual investor, your influence over market swings, over how your investments actually perform,
Yeah.
it's pretty limited. So your wealth building becomes kind of dependent on all these factors outside your direct control.
Okay, that makes sense. Time, control. What else?
The third big point seems to be about the value of time itself, but maybe in a different way.
How so?
He really emphasizes that our most energetic years, our healthiest years, they're usually when we're younger, right? That's when we have the most capacity to really go out and enjoy life fully.
True.
So waiting until your 60s or 70s to finally have financial freedom, well, you might not have the same health or energy to actually make the most of it.
Ah, I see. So it's not just about the amount of time, but the quality of that time.
Exactly. He uses this phrase, he says, the get-rich-slow road can become a dirty, rotten alley if it just eats up your best years,
Hmm.
without even guaranteeing you'll get the payoff you wanted in the end.
Wow, dirty, rotten alley. That's,
Yeah.
yeah, pretty strong imagery.
It is. And that idea of time as this finite thing, this asset you can't get back, it's absolutely central to his whole argument. He's questioning this whole notion that retirement years are automatically the golden years.
Right.
He's suggesting maybe the real golden years are when you have both the time and the health to do what you want without money worries holding you back, sacrificing your vibrant present for some potentially, diminished future reward. That's a key problem for him.
Okay, so if get rich slow is, in his view anyway, so flawed, what's the alternative? What does the Millionaire Fastlane actually propose instead? What's the different way?
Well, obviously, we're just introducing the core ideas in this book talk, Finance Today, but
Yeah.
it's important to know he does outline a whole different framework. It's built on different principles.
Like what kind of principles?
Generally, they're centered around things like creating or controlling businesses or maybe assets that have the potential for really rapid growth. Scalability is key.
Ah, okay. Not just saving a paycheck.
Right. He emphasizes decoupling your income from the hours you put in, focusing on creating significant value out there in the marketplace.
He mentions, after that whole Lamborghini thing,
Yeah.
he made a deliberate effort to study people who got wealthy young. Not like celebrities or lottery winners.
Right, not windfalls.
No, people who genuinely built rich lifestyles themselves. He was looking for common threads, like a kind of code to wealth that wasn't about waiting decades.
And that focus, studying people who achieved wealth quickly, that's a big departure from the usual advice, isn't it? Instead of just looking at broad market trends or historical averages, he's digging into the specific strategies and actions of individuals who got there fast.
Yeah. It is pretty clear it wasn't like smooth sailing for him either. No overnight success. He talks about hitting obstacles, taking wrong turns, making mistakes.
The real journey, then.
Totally. He even shares some funny stories, like his mother constantly saying, "Get a job, baby."
Yeah.
He jokes that her voice could exterminate cockroaches in a post-apocalyptic world.
Huh.
But it paints a picture right. Someone dealing with real-world pressures, people doubting him, while he's trying this less common path.
Absolutely. Those personal stories, they add a crucial layer of relatability. It highlights that moving towards a different financial future often involved pushing through some serious hurdles, internal doubts, external pressures, all of it.
He even describes this moment, he calls it a blizzard of awakening, when he was working this demanding job as a limo driver.
A limo driver. Interesting contrast.
Yeah, and that experience really forced him to, like, confront where he was financially versus where he wanted to be.
That stark contrast, yeah, between the demanding job and the big aspirations, that can be a powerful catalyst for change, for sure.
He also mentioned some early businesses he tried, right? Like a website connecting people needing limos in New York with the limo companies.
Uh-huh.
Seems like a pretty straightforward idea and did make him some money, but
Right.
he realized his income was still totally tied to the time he spent building and running those sites.
Okay. Still trading time for money, essentially.
Exactly. And that realization pushed him to think differently towards creating income streams that weren't so dependent on him personally being there all the time.
And that evolution from directly trading time for money to building systems, building assets that generate income more independently, that's really fundamental to the Fastlane idea, isn't it?
Sounds like it.
It highlights the huge importance of scalability and creating assets that work for you instead of you just constantly working for them.
So it really sounds like this book is pushing for a fundamental shift in how you see the world.
Yeah.
Like moving away from just being a consumer, just being an employee, and thinking more like a producer a business owner, someone focused on actively creating value and capturing it.
Absolutely. That's a great way to put it. It challenges you, the reader, to really examine your beliefs about how wealth is created and to seriously consider these alternative models that prioritize things like speed, control, and leverage.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it's not just about hitting some magic number in your bank account. It's about achieving genuine financial freedom, living life on your own terms, and crucially, doing that sooner rather than dragging it out for decades.
Well, this has definitely given us a solid first look at what the Millionaire Fastlane is driving at. This whole challenge to the get-rich-slow default and exploring this idea of a potentially faster way.
Yeah, it's a provocative concept.
It really seems like DeMarco wants you to rethink how you value your time, how you use leverage, and just fundamentally how you approach creating wealth in the first place. And hey, if this discussion has got you thinking or sparked some curiosity, you can actually explore these ideas more and connect with other people looking at this perspective over at the fastlaneforum.com, that community he mentioned.
Good point. And maybe as you think about these initial ideas, just consider this. Are the societal norms we see around work, saving, retirement, are they really the only way to financial freedom? Or could there be, more efficient, maybe even more fulfilling ways to build the life you actually want?
That is a powerful question to mull over. Definitely something to think about. Make sure you subscribe to this channel for more book talks, finance, and these kinds of in-depth discussions on different perspectives for building wealth. Thanks for tuning in.